The whole world in the future is going to be into two parts. One who create AI, other part who uses AI. We will have more than 30% of the entire world's GCCs in India. India has always been had an upper edge, or upper hand when it came to talent because of the large country with a large population.
The industry is shifting because of AI.
And then somebody would use AI to clear an interview. A lot of big companies are going back to the personal rounds of interviews. I know that that's what finally is the best check for anybody.
I think AI has created the challenges, and as you mentioned, like AI is also solving the problem. Format of the resume should be what should be the size of resume.
Resume has to be good enough to clear the AI tool.
A startup is always paying 1.5, 2x, right? Those kind of things. They also do the layoff.
Companies laying off which have never even heard of laying off anybody at all. Demand for the right people, and the right profiles will definitely go up.
Way we are hiring humans, we are going to hire agents. Hi, this is Anil. We are inviting our very special guest today, Ramit Tyagi. And I was working with Ramit in my last organization, last to last, in fact, at Strong, and Ramit hired me. So I got an honor to invite him on AP Talks in our studio today. Ramit came with like 2 decades of experience in talent acquisition around the globe. So we would love to hear more from him during this podcast session, and we are going to talk about some very interesting topic. So thank you, Ramit, for joining me on this podcast.
Thank you, Anil, for having me here. I think it's a pleasure for me being here with you today to share my experiences. I think it's a very different thing to be interviewed by one of your ex-hires. So for any recruitment guy, it's always good to be sitting with your own candidate whom you would have hired, and I'm Ramit. Anil just said I carry about more than 2 decades of hiring experience. I've hired for large companies, product companies, startups. I've also worked for R&D companies, and even in my current role, I lead the hiring for a very large enterprise SaaS company into data, AI, and analytics. Thank you again, Anil, for having me here today.
Thank you. And this is going to be very interesting, engaging, because there are a lot of hobbies that I personally know about Ramit in singing, in cultural event. So we are going to have a lot of fun on this 1 hour podcast, and it may go a little bit above. So we will start with couple of very interesting questions. Would like to know about the background, like how you thought about this industry, like how your education helped joining in this role, and then how you see this like different from any other corporate role that you can think of.
So, Anil, I belong to a very small place called Roorkee. We all have heard about IIT Roorkee. That's where I was born. My dad was into the paramilitary forces, so we kept on moving from places to places. Every second year, we'll go to a new place, a new school, new friends, new teacher, and a new environment and culture. What that also led me to, inculcate was a behavior or a capability to connect to a new culture,
Right.
new people, because every place has got its own essence, and with my education, so I've done a computer science graduation from Kurukshetra University. As soon as I passed out of the college, there was a dot-com burst, no jobs available. So I knew how to code, and those were the languages of old time, Fortran, COBOL, DB3 plus. While I knew I could code, but there were no jobs, for a coder in those days. I thought, let me take up anything that comes in my way. I got into my job into sales, and I would sell computers. Now, those are the days when computers were pretty new to India. People will have to be first told what is a computer, what can it do for you, and then you had to sell it off. So those are the days I started selling computers. And after running around in the Delhi's hot summers on a bike,
Yeah.
I thought, why shouldn't I take a job where I need to sit in a good office, in an air-conditioned place, or a typical white-collar job. And that's where I got my first job as a recruiter, in a US-based staffing company. And Rajesh Sharma was my first mentor, my first leader who actually got me into the industry. And then I started my job almost 22 years back with a staffing company.
Okay, cool. So you mentioned about like you traveled almost all great places within India. Does that help you to have the diversified talent? And does this help in overall the journey throughout your career?
I think you are able to connect better to any kind of candidates, whatever diverse background that they come from. Also, you're able to connect the dots, and coming from a paramilitary background or armed forces background, we were told to be comfortable in an uncomfortable state from the very beginning itself,
Right.
which also meant that we could connect, be comfortable, be happy in any state. Also, we could connect to the people all across India, So I've traveled all across India, firstly with my dad. on his postings, and then being a part of hiring team, being a recruiter. I've traveled all across the colleges, all across India for weekend rides or campus recruitment.
You mentioned a very important point, right? And that's something I learned it today, right? That you passed out from your graduation in engineering and then you opt for a talent acquisition. Did you find any time throughout your career, okay, I should go back and do the coding again?
So instead of coding, I think I've been hiring coders,
Yeah.
which is still a better job, I'll say. But I think whatever I learned in my college helped me connect better, or connect or have better conversations, with the candidates. And that's why I've been hiring techies forever.
Wow.
And I never thought of going back to coding, but I love hiring techies like you and other
Sure.
techies that I've
So
hired. Yeah.
how many lives in last 2 decades you would have touched?
Many thousand, I'm sure, and for me, hiring or being a recruiter is a good karma.
Yeah.
You help the company grow faster with the best of talent. You also help somebody make a better living and better earning or a better career by giving a better job. So for me, it's a good karma both the ways. You help the company grow faster. You help somebody make a better living, and then you connect with people, which is again a flavor of mine.
Taking this discussion ahead, right? What are the typical challenges of your role identifying a talent, and especially just give some examples about the industry shifting because of AI, right? So maybe just talk about what are the common challenges.
So I think TA is a pretty interesting TA, talent acquisition or hiring is a pretty interesting job. And that's what I love about it because every candidate, while they may come from the same tech stack, will have a new story, a unique story. They're all different in their own ways. The typical challenges any recruiter would face in their career being a recruiter would be hiring somebody with the best kind of talent at the right time, within the given timeline, within the right budgets. And I think in whichever company and scenarios you work for, there's always going to be a time bound urgency to be cracked or achieved. So it's a time bound job. It's a sales job with a human touch. It's a job where your product or your sale remains with you because you're hiring talent, you're dealing with humans. You would have people who may not be, like you, but you got to connect to all sort of people coming from all sort of background. And the bigger job becomes how do you relate or create a good rapport with them. And I think what solves for it is also the way to connect with people. And the typical challenges would be the selection ratio, the time to fill, joining ratio, because a lot of candidates give you a surprise on a Friday
Exactly.
evening when you have got a very critical project waiting for them to be onboarded on Monday. So I think there's a lot of thrill, adventure, a lot of suspense all the time with you being a recruiter.
One common challenge that I started facing, especially in US hiring, right? There are so many fake profiles. And then candidates are also becoming smarter with the help of AI, that they use all the tools that helps them answering all the questions, right? And it is US, it's mostly the remote hiring, right? So people are not going and doing it in person. Did you see any of these challenges in your hiring, and then how you like came up with any solutions for that?
See, these challenges are pretty common in the industry. And I was talking to somebody, we use AI to write the JDs through AI, and a candidate would use AI to write a profile, through
Exactly.
AI. And then somebody would use AI to clear an interview. So I think everybody is using AI. It's like, something, it's all goes by your intentions. What do you want to do with AI, right? So just like AI is being used to fudge an interview or fake an interview, similarly, AI is also being used to judge the genuineness of a candidate, or the originality of a candidate and a profile. So there are various platforms that help you do a better proctoring, better invigilation, keep a track of whether the candidate were moving their, eyes beyond the laptop. There was somebody whispering into the conversation, somebody prompting them. And there are more ways and more platforms which are coming to check.
Do you want to talk about few of them? Maybe I think someone who's watching this video and maybe they are part of this hiring industry may be benefited from this.
A lot of platforms are being created and they're already there in the market, which are born in the USA or even in India right now. I don't want to name any particular brands, but I know there are a lot of work being done on these platforms and through these platforms as well to judge the fakeness of a candidate or fakeness of an interview. And I think a lot of big companies are going back to the personal rounds of interviews. I know that that's what finally is the best check for anybody. Also, you get a very clear view of the persona, the personality, the body language, and I think that's why we also typically would try to do at least one face-to-face round.
Face to face is very important, and that's where like you get to know about at least the past rounds.
Yeah.
And in some of like at least some of the tools that I have personally looked for, so Hacker Earth and Hacker Rank, right? And the coding game is also one good platform But yeah, I think AI has created the challenges, and as you mentioned, like AI is also solving the problem. Moving ahead with what is throughout your journey, right, where you struggled a lot in terms of hiring a talent, or you must have like missed the opportunity, right? What is that skill set, and maybe any funny story? How did you? Because Indians are good at jugaad, right? So how you were able to like cope up with any of these things?
Yeah. So I've done a lot of college hiring. I've
Uh,
covered all the top tier institutes, both in engineering, and management side of institutes as well. One of the colleges where I was, and I was hiring for software engineers, and typically you would ask somebody that, what are your hobbies, and I asked somebody, hey, what's your hobby? And he said, I'm into sports.
okay.
And then I say, what kind of sports? And he said, I love to play Temple Run.
Okay.
So that's one thing that really stuck with me. And there's another time when I was not really hiring for a software engineering role. I went to a college in Noida and I asked somebody, hey, you look pretty tired and sad. I mean, are you okay? The candidate said, yes, I was preparing until 2 in the morning today. And I said, what were you preparing for? And he said, I was brushing up my knowledge on, I think it was JavaScript or
Okay.
something. And then it was a non-tech role. So we were not even hiring for a software engineering. And the candidate said, I was brushing up my software fundamentals.
I'm going to ask one of my personal questions, right? What is like, there are few gurus on the internet, they are saying the decades of experience should show up on your resume. Then the other side of the people, they are saying like one pager is fine. So it is always a debatable topic. You being the lead on this industry, right? How do you see like what is the right format of the resume should be? What should be the size of resume? What are the key points that you see when you look for any profile? So maybe just talk about, and what strategies do you use, right? I know that there are software that help keyword research and all those things.
So there is no set standard for this, Anil, and what I'll say, resume has to be good enough to clear the AI tool, the platform on which the resume is being uploaded. Secondly, it should be good enough to get an interest or a call for the interview. Ideally, I would keep my resume into 2 or 3 pages only.
Okay.
That's what you will see in most of the IIMs as well. You will only have a one pager. Even in IITs, you will have a 1 or 2 pager only. It should be good enough to clear the first screening, either through tool or personal screening, and then good enough to get you an interview call is what I'll believe in. But I think the best way is always to put into your resume what you feel proud of,
Okay.
which is also relevant to the JD that you're applying for.
Right.
The biggest mistake a candidate would do is they'll put the same resume all across and then assume that they will get a call. But I think every role is different, every JD is different. Similarly, every candidate profile and similarly every resume has to be customized only if you have done it, not because you want to fake it, but only if you've done what's been the highlight of the
So I think the
profile.
takeaway, I would say, like for each requirement, you should not fit one resume for all the
I don't think it
requirements.
works. I
Yeah,
don't think it
because
works.
I have seen, if I am hiring a Java guy and maybe that person has worked in BI, in Oracle, databases, machine learning, and then somewhere written Java, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
that doesn't look like a good profile to me. Rather than 10 places, I would like to see, okay, it should be Java most of the places, right? Something like that.
Yeah, and I think one thing is what is the prerequisite of a JD or a profile that you're applying for. There will be certain mandatory skills which should definitely show in your profile if you really use them or worked on them. But then there is no harm in adding what you bring to the kitchen to those. And for that, always go through the company, their profile, their existing leadership or workforce. You'll always get them easily on the LinkedIn. Go through what kind of people have really been successful there, who have been stable there, and then see how do you compare yourself to them, because typically a company would want to hire people who have really had a success story with them as a background.
Now, the next thing people talk about, especially hiring in India, right? People talk about, okay, having profile on Monster, having profile on Naukri, Indeed, LinkedIn. What do you see like maximum resources or the potential candidate you are successfully able to hire from? Which particular tool, if you want to stack rank them?
I think for active candidates, it's always going to be a job boot or a job portal like Naukri or Monster. For India, Naukri is obviously is number one for a long time. For a passive candidate or for a product or a engineering R&D candidate, I always prefer LinkedIn. Also for a passive talent, I think LinkedIn works better because that's where you connect with the right talent, keep them updated on what's happening in your company, and then suddenly or maybe finally when you have a role, you get them into the process, and by the time you also know enough about them whether they're going to be success or not with your position and company. And also that also helps you do lesser interviews to get better selection.
Exactly. So it is
So
more about
LinkedIn is one thing.
nudging them to get selected. For example, if someone is reaching out to me, I've not put my open to work. I'm not active on Naukri or Monster, right? But if someone is looking to hire someone like me, right, they can reach out to me over LinkedIn and then talk about the rules and things like that. And then probably I may make up my mind. So something like that, where you go for leadership hiring or someone from research related, right?
Of course, yeah, I think, and that's the platform to stay connected. Also, I think there are new platforms which are coming up. So GitHub is coming out very well. Reddit is coming out very well. Because you also want to see how are they contributing to what they do as a profile in their current company beyond the profile and beyond their organization. Are they committing to a platform like GitHub, or they contributing to a platform like GitHub? Are they active there? Also, I think every company goes through your social media contributions, presentations, to check also on your persona, the kind of values that you believe in, to check whether they map very well to the culture of the company that is hiring you or not.
This is something I got to learn for first time. So not just LinkedIn, they scan through your all other social media.
Yeah. Most of the companies.
So what are the hidden things like this, right? Because I think it's not something which is very open, right? And or maybe been told to the candidate. What are these kind of things which, as a candidate, you should always try to make up for? Maybe the GitHub, Reddit, or maybe having blogs on Medium or something like that.
Yeah. So I think every good company or every good organization would have a background check done on any candidate that they hire. And the background check these days would just not include your criminal history or criminal database check or financial crime history or, into drugs and all, but also may go through your social media presence and profile. Nobody would want to hire somebody who's toxic, who's negative, who's maybe communal. People love to work with people who are more agile, flexible, positive, and collaborators and good team players. Ultimately, you all will have to work in a team, So if you really don't take along people or get along well with people, they may be a challenge, either for you or for the company that you're a part of, or maybe for the team that you're a part of.
Moving next to the GenAI story, right? Some of the POCs that my team has built when we started working on RAG model, right? So we started with the hiring process because we get a lot of resumes, and when we do these hirings, right? So we put all these resumes and created a RAG pipeline on top of it, and this is just at a POC. We even did not do the market research. Is there a tool like that where you just put dump all the resumes and you just quickly search it through from the unstructured data?
A lot of AI tools are in practice right now. I could say Bright Hire is one of them. They do the parsing for you. They do the initial calling for you through a Autobot. They also schedule your interviews, and they may even give a very good cultural plus technical but persona specific feedback from the
Okay.
very initial rounds, so that you have to do less interviews, and you may have to do very few rounds of interviews finally for checking the final fitment. I think the only thing that concerns me is, especially for India as a region, candidates love to talk, talk beyond what is available on the machine or on a bot. They would love to be explained better on the profile, on the culture, so that human touch is still important for a region like India, where people love to connect with each other, and but in the US side, where things are purely black and white or professional, I think a lot of stuff is already moved to machine.
As you have worked like startups, services company, product companies, where do you see like the difference in terms of hiring approach, right? And then maybe just code with some of the examples that can help.
So I think every company will have its own business model, which also aligns or impacts the kind of talent that they would need to grow further. For a services company, it's purely driven by the client. It's a billable role. Somebody has to be deployable for a particular client requirement. So client will also be involved in the hiring many a times. But whatever the candidate after joining is supposed to be doing is purely run by the client. In a startup, there is more accountability, ownership for a candidate, because startups are still shaping up in what they want to be. So a candidate has to be more flexible, agile to even look, think, or do beyond what's there on the profile. We all have worked for startups. I think most of us have worked for startups. So do you think or even look beyond the profile, which could not be set into a particular structure or format? For a product company, for a R&D company, innovation, that whole mindset to innovate or look beyond what is visible to you becomes an important part. And similarly, the hiring strategy would change, the way you hire and where you are hiring for, and also from where you are hiring. So the supply or the targeted pool changes, with the process of evaluation is going to change. Also, the way you take care of the entire hiring process also changes as per the company and the business model you're hiring for. Yeah.
So just double click on because there are so many folks in the past worked with, right? They left the company, services company, obviously I'm quoting, they moved to startup. A startup is always paying 1.5 2x, right? Those kind of thing. They also do the layoff, and then they try to join back the your team, or they like find similar teams. So do you see like when someone as a candidate, they are planning to join any startup, what are the criteria they should be taking care of?
See, layoffs are not specific to only startups anymore. I think we have seen the biggest of the companies doing it so far is the way the market is changing. A lot of things are getting automated, and we have seen the companies laying off, which had never even heard of laying off anybody at all. The biggest ones, companies globally or even in India. I think it's all depends on the business model, the talent strategy of the company. Startups, or when you join a company, I'll always say look at the profile that you're joining them for, look at the revenue or the financials of the company, look at their culture. Do they have a culture to accommodate, reskill, reprofile, or they like to just restructure and lay off at the earliest possibility? Those are the things to be aware of. But I don't think startups are more common for when it comes to layoffs. But it could happen with any company or any of us, in fact. And that's where the reskilling or be agile, be flexible to pick up a new tech stack. Also, be always aware of your surroundings. You should always get a vibe or a sense what's happening around me in terms of business, growth, opportunities. And if you get a good opportunity to change a role in the current company, the best thing to do. Always keep on adding more edge to your profile or more skills or tech stacks to your profile. So learning becomes a forever capability for all of us.
I think you mentioned a very important point, and that's what I like admire and always coach my team. If you get a growth within your organization, right? Maybe growth through moving a different team, applying through IJPs, or getting a hike within the company, that always helps better. There are new skills being demanded in the market because of AI and Gen AI, right? So there are like new skills like prompt engineers, AI architects, right? And then AI adoption specialist. So, from your point of view, do you see that reskilling is a better way to like leverage the candidates who are already part of the organization, or do you see no, it is completely like difficult to reskill or upskill, but to hire talent from outside who are like just started with AI?
So as long as you have the right talent with you already, it's always going to be an easier journey to reskill somebody who's already part of the family or the culture or the organization, because then you don't have to culturally align them to your business model or the culture of the company. Only thing is they should have good fundamentals to be reskilled, and that whole attitude to learn has to be there. That aptitude has to be there. Also, you should have enough, opportunities and systems or teams in place to reskill and redeploy people. That's always the easier thing to do. Now, there would be some new tech stack that you never had in your kitty or in your pool, which you will always have to hire from outside. I think for the workforce, for speaking from a candidate perspective, it becomes all the more important to be agile, flexible, and that ability to learn, to pick up a new skill or tech stack, gonna keep you ahead of the curve, always keep you more in demand. And then you will never be afraid of layoff because you're there to pick up a new tech stack, investing in your own profile. You're always learning a new tech stack. You're always ready for the future.
There've been more trainings, I would say. Like I was part of Infosys, then Genpact. There are like centralized learning and training platforms. But in the current market, I've seen like all the industries are crazy for training their resources just to like compete. And that is true also because technology is also changing
Yeah.
very fast, right? What are the top three tools that you would suggest the best for learnings?
The biggest, I think all of us are getting hands on with Copilot, Gemini, or ChatGPT. I think read a report with LinkedIn, that the whole world in the future is going to be into two parts: one who create AI, other part who uses AI, right?
Yeah.
There would be no third category, and that's the category that's on a risk of a layoff will be, But I think that ability to learn, and everybody has to be hands on with AI right now. You cannot stay away from it. You cannot say it scares me. You cannot say I'm not going to learn. And I think that's where every organization is putting their best efforts to get these licensed access to these platforms.
Yeah.
Also, removing those inhibitions in the employees that, hey, it's not to replace you. It's only to make you more efficient. It's only to make you more productive. And we all have to learn to be doing better in the given time. and achieving more in a lesser time. That's where these tools and AI is going to be more helpful to us. So I think everybody is running these programs. Even AI is being used to train and reskill your company, your profiles much better. And that's the reason the whole focus came back to reskilling and training. And that's the reason I think a lot of companies are getting very robust on their training teams and their training programs and even the platforms.
Right. Now, the next question, you do a lot of global hiring, right? And you do uh, talent export from India. So, what are the top geographies or the regions that you see the talent is being demanded, right? Like US, UK, Dubai, things like that.
See, India has always been had an upper edge, or upper hand, when it came to talent because of the large country with a large population and many millions of people, coming out of engineering colleges. And I think we were always, the way we all have education as part of our very focused, mindset in our families, in the guidance that we get from all our elders. So there is a culture of getting into these engineering colleges, and we have lot many of them. So India always was a preferred region to hire from, and a lot of GCCs are coming to India for the same region.
I
I
had
think
1500 by 2030.
I know, I think it's a huge industry, and I think we will have more than 30% of the entire world's GCCs in India, for sure. It's a huge industry which is picking up day by day, and every new company is opening up an offshore center in India. Now, that is anyway creating more opportunities for all of us. Only thing that we got to be aware of is that, we need to be the best in terms of qualitative talent, and which also means that we'll have to really take care of our curriculums and syllabuses in the college, as well as there is a personal responsibility to keep reskilling ourselves or redeploying, reinvesting in our own profile. But the new geographies which are coming up are to more for the covering the time zone. So there are a lot of new geographies in Guatemala, Costa Rica, Argentina, a lot of new geographies in Eastern, Europe, Romania, Poland, which are picking up. But India also has an edge on the English being a preferred language from the very first, year in the schools and early, school days. So I think we have a edge for sure. We need to keep investing in it to stay ahead of the curve.
Another question, and just to like, because of the global geopolitical reasons, right? H1B has been in the news, right, last month. So where you see like H1B gonna impact the resources who are having US dream, American dream, and how do you see that Indians are going to find again a jugaad to get to the US?
I think it's getting more complex with the new regime, with the new governments, all across. But I think the day is not far off when we'll have more opportunities and better opportunities in India. We just need to get better with our infrastructure, the way we administer our infrastructure, and the way we manage our new smart cities. So I think companies will get away, and the numbers should only go down in terms of H1s for sure. While there would be more opportunities, but I think they're going to be more short term. And a lot of companies will go local in hiring or creating a talent base there. And even in those regions, I think you have a lot of people from all across the globe to pick the best talent. But I think the salaries are getting much better in India, and anybody earning well, well enough, I think India is the best place to be at. In one of the places outside of India, I stayed there for 2 years. And that's what I realized, the kind of belongingness, the kind of attachment, or the kind of, pride I have working from India, hiring all across the globe. I don't think I found that anywhere. I've been to various regions. I've worked in various geographies, but I think the way I feel when I work at India, or be at India with my family, with my loved ones, with my friends, only thing is you need to have enough money to, have a good living here, obviously.
Right. You have to be like working in the right organization
Yeah,
with right
yeah,
mindset of
yeah,
people.
yeah.
Next question is someone who's watching this video, right? And they are part of their graduation, right? They are in second year, third year, or maybe preparing for engineering. As a TA lead, what do you recommend them to learn, right? So that once they are out of college, they should be like visible and they should be part of any freshers program. Because I think one thing that you and I were discussing offline, that AI is going to impact fresh graduates for sure, right? But how they can train themselves so that they should not be out of that they should be out of that like league, and they will be ready, they will be visible. So what are the strategies and how do you suggest, like, especially for those like people who are still in college?
I say don't just depend on your college to make you deployable or get you your first job. Ensure that you go for an organization that really invests in your to help you create a big, great fundamental
Yeah.
or a great foundation. That's very, very important. Don't just get, run by the money part of it, but look for the learnings, look for the right leadership, look for the right culture. And even though you're in college, you're in access to the database and the networks and, communities all across. Pick the right mentors, pick the right, trainings, pick the right certifications, which are beyond your curriculum, beyond your syllabus, and get ready for an interview through not just a good profile, but also create a good introductory pitch. Learn how to be the best when you, present yourself without having much experience. Also, when you don't know a tech stack, we don't know a skill, it's absolutely fine. Nobody can know everything, but be good at representing yourself as a person who can learn anything and everything
Right.
if given an opportunity, because that's what is going to become a very, very critical skill for the future. Secondly, work on your comm skills. If you get to work for a good company, it's going to be a global environment, a global team to be a part of. Learn how to communicate, learn how to comprehend, learn how to express yourself. I've seen a lot of technical people, especially where they come from a small town or maybe from a humble upbringing, they struggle on the comm skill while very good coders. I've
Yeah.
seen that in many colleges. I feel sad because they've already covered the tougher task of being a good coder, writing the right algorithms or more tough algorithms and logics. What they missed out was just plain
Not able to
express.
themselves.
I think they may not have realized the value of it, but I think that's what is very, very important for all of us.
You, I believe, hit the nail because someone like I was in Nvidia, right? One thing that was a takeaway for me: AI can respond as better as you provide the input,
Yeah.
right? As better you express, the better you will be getting the output. So that aligns with the shift in the market. If you are better in comprehension, if you are better in expressing yourself, you will be
Yeah.
able to get the work done. If you are not able to give that problem statement, how to create a website, you will always struggle with your prompt and you will not get the end result. So that is, I believe, a very valid thought process. So coming to the next part of this discussion, so we talked about the candidate, how this is going to impact the TA industry. So do you see like someone who's like aspiring to become a part of your team or part of this role, right? Do you see that demand is going to be up, especially in India, or that is going to be impacted by by AI?
See, demand may not go up, but the demand for the right people, and the right profiles will definitely go up. What that means is industry would need more TA partners or more recruiters who are more creative, more innovative, more AI savvy.
Savvy.
People who can do more in lesser time,
Yeah.
who can think how to create a better experience with AI on your side, how to create a better experience and a better efficiency by using AI to your advantage. So you will need, so I think there's always a demand for the right profiles for in any industry. You got to ensure that you are in the top 20%, top 20, 30% of it.
One thing someone was mentioning, the way we are hiring humans, we are going to hire agents, right? So probably that is going to be the next TA 2.0 kind of industry, right? Where you should be hiring the right agent who can like combine with human and do the better job.
Yeah, we both have to complement each other for
Yeah.
sure. Yeah.
So coming to the next one, what are the benefits or what are like I would say, so we have seen the corporate side of the world, right? It's been always on pressure, tough timelines. I'm assuming something similar on your side where you have to go through a lot of challenges, your personal work life, right? And then I would say like if you want to summarize, what is your role in terms of pros and cons? How you would rate that?
See, for a TA professional, for a recruiter, you'll always have tough timelines, strict quality measurements, that you want the best of the talent at the best of as soon as possible, as of yesterday, and then at the right cost, which also means that you would never be able to pay what the candidate wanted, right?
Yeah.
You always have to be logical in what you want to pay, and you'll always have budget constraints as well. And then come the pressure or the stress of doing so. For me, I think I've been hiring or doing the same stuff for last 23 years now. If you love your job, if you're passionate about it, I don't think there is any stress about, because if you love it, why there is a stress about doing so, There would be tough times. There would be situations where it will demand more from you. But then there would also be times when you get relaxed, or you get more time for your personal stuff. For me, it's not that I'm trying to balance my personal and work life. There's always going to be a time when the life or the personal thing takes an advantage. You may have to stand by that.
Yeah.
Your family needs you more. Your organization should give you enough time for that. Many times your organization would need you more because there is a business urgency and your family should understand that, right?
Right.
I think for me, it's more of a juggling with both the sides. One of them is going to be more critical on any given day.
Yep.
We need to give fair advantage and help to that side of it,
Right.
And while everybody will want to work in an ideal scenario, but in the current unpredictable business scenarios, I don't think there are times which are ideal, for any of us.
You mentioned about the layoff. How difficult, like I'm assuming, being in the role for 23 years, you must be part of several cycles. What is that mental pressure that you have to go through, right? Because the people that you had, now you have to think of letting them go, right? And then balancing with your management what you can do well for them. I know that most of the companies also think about like training these resources and then letting go, giving them enough money so that they can survive for 6 months to an year, right? What is that mental pressure that you go through? And then, so that's the first thing, right? What the mental pressure, and then how you take care of that execution. What are the critical things that you take care of that entire journey? It's a tough one.
Yeah, I know. And I think layoffs are not something that anybody would enjoy,
Yeah.
And while for HR also, or for anybody who's a part of the management or business leadership, it's again equally a tough thing to do, right? And I think it's always the last resort to be done. But it's never going to be as difficult as it's for the employees who's being laid off, right? So I think, and I had to go through it, do it for one of the companies and startups that I worked for, where I first grew that company from a size of 40 to 150. Finally, our funds dried up, our revenues dried up. It did not launch the way it should have to the profits side of it. We had to again reduce the size to remain sustainable, profitable. And I had that was the toughest part of my journey forever. And that's the only time I played a HR role. I never gone back to that. I think for me that's a very tough thing to make deal with. But obviously I understand these are business scenarios. All of us have to finally align. It's an enterprise that you work for, right? The whole objective is to remain profitable. That's how you remain sustainable. And many times you have to let go some of your friends because you have to take a bigger care or a better care of a larger chunk in the teams.
What are the strategies like when you think of, right, or someone who's like listening to this podcast and if they are into the same situation, what is what is your suggestion, right? How to take care of this? Maybe thinking about some of the benefits for the person who's letting go.
I think as a recruiter, we always have tried to help the people who are asked to go, whether they're from our companies or some other companies. And also because of the network that we have or the relationship we have, we'll always have some place known to us where the hiring is still on for that particular skill set. I think the entire TA fraternity or the recruitment fraternity has always stayed, active on helping such workforce which is getting impacted. And all of us try to help them to gain another job, also reskill them, also tell them, hey, this could just be a part of the journey, but not the end of it, obviously. And
Yep.
I think with the uncertainty around all of us, we all have to get used to it. And this is not an end of story. It's not an end of life. It's just a phase that will come and go. All that you could do is how to deal with it with courage, with resilience. And I think that's where the resilience becomes a very strong skill for all of us because we have to learn how to be comfortable in an uncomfortable state, and that's what makes it more, I'll not say easy, but maybe easier to deal with.
Right.
Yeah.
So coming to the last one, I know that this has become a little bit dark because of the topics that we discussed. But Ramit is very good singer also, right? And he's like a person who is very culturally involved in a lot of activities. I remember days at Genpact. So maybe I think we would love to end up this podcast, right, with your song and then probably a message who would be like your listener would like to hear from you.
So I think this one principle that I heard from my very first manager, in the very first job that I took as a recruiter from Rajiv Sharma, who's still a mentor to me, and I'm still in touch with him. He's a CHRO for a big company now in the US. But what he told me was, and it was his signature in the email, that it's nice to be important, but it's more important to be nice. I always believed in, being a help to people around me. And I think no matter where you reach, but don't stop being nice to people around you. That's what they'll remember you forever, irrespective of your designation, tags, or the money that you make. How you, behave or take along people is what you get remembered by or for. So
So
I think that's what, yeah. And When it comes to song, I think I also draw inspiration from movies. I'm a movie buff, and being a recruiter, Godfather is my very favorite movie. I love the dialogue of it that make him an offer that he cannot refuse.
Yeah.
So Don Corleone, and I've always lived by that. Try to do that as a recruiter as
Yeah.
well. When it comes to song, Kishore Kumar is my favorite singer. When I get sometimes confused or slow, or carried away with the things not going in the right direction, I draw my inspiration from Ruk Jana Nahi, Tu Kahin Haar Ke, O Rahi.
Okay. Maybe I think you would like go for 2 lines of the song.
रुक जाना नहीं तू कहीं हार के कांटों पे चल के मिलेंगे साए बाहर के ओ राही ओ राही ओ राही ओ राही. Thank you so much. Yeah.
So, just to conclude, this was Ramit, and this was power packed session with him. I really loved so many things out of, and there are so many takeaways for me. If you are watching this video till here, so the message is reach out to Ramit through comment section, reach out to him directly on LinkedIn. We will love to have this conversation ongoing, not just limited to this podcast, but beyond this, right? So this is just a start. And don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe so that I should be able to invite Ramit again and have more such sessions. So thank you so much, Ramit.
Thank you, Anil. Thank you so much. Thanks, everyone.